Well, hello. Thank you for dropping by. I am Jim Bennett, the old gardener. About 35 years ago, I had a network television show. Just for the history's sake, it was called The Weekend Gardener. So now I'm pushing 80, retired, and I thought, hey, as much as I enjoy gardening and as much knowledge as I have and the research I've done and being a teacher for the master gardeners, hey, it's time to share some more knowledge and continue being that teacher. I'm out here with my pole beans. Now, for me, the pole beans are the bean to grow. I used to grow a lot of bush beans, but now that I'm older and a senior citizen, it's not. I can't get down on my hands and knees and pick a 50, 60-foot row of beans. But now you don't have to have that many. You can have a 10-foot row. You can have one container of beans. But pole beans produce more and they're easy to pick. For instance, I can pick the pole beans just by standing up and picking them. Don't have to bend over. They come up to meet me and they're friendly. This one is trying to say good morning to you, Jim. Well, let me, before we get all the way into all the answers from the pole beans, I've had a question or two. Somebody asked me why I always wore this glove on my left hand. Well, no, I'm not trying to do a bad Michael Jackson impression, any of those things. Many years ago, I was involved in an industrial accident, and it took off these four fingers. And due to the skill of the doctor, he put three of them back on. This one, he couldn't get it back on there. So that's the reason I wear the glove. I'm diabetic and I have neuropathy in this hand, and anything that touches it sometimes stings and hurts. So I have found that wearing a glove keeps me from having impact and keeps me where I can use this hand just like I want to. All right. Well, pole beans. That's the answer because pole beans have been around since nobody knows when. They think they came from Peru, but then this is a confusing factor. The story goes that in Khufu's tomb, they found a container of bean seeds. So if they came from Peru, and now they're in Egypt in a pyramid, and they're about 2,000 years old, and the story continues that they were able to soak those beans, plant them, and they grew beans. Well, I don't know how true that is or how factual it is, but I know that it's in books and that I have read about it. So let's continue with the pole beans. Pole beans are nutritious. A cup of pole beans has about maybe 60 calories. Um, a cup of Boston baked beans has about 600 calories. Now, on a diabetic diet, the pole beans are the very thing that I need to be eating. So I can them, I freeze them, I save them and use them almost 3 or 4 times a week. I never get tired of the pole beans. And they are easy to grow because in most places they will continue to produce all the way until the frost kills them. Pole beans are that way. Bush beans burn out very quickly. A package of seed of pole beans that you may get from Ferry Morse or some other seed company um, for bean seeds normally has about 30 to 60 beans in it. And that's enough for a 15 to a 30-foot row. You need to plant those beans about an inch and a half, an inch to an inch and a half to 3 inches deep. Now, if you live in sandy soil, an inch and a half, 2 inches is great. If you live in clay, hard packed gumbo or Georgia red clay, or, you know, then you need to plant them about an inch deep because they have to fight their way up. And you don't want them using all of that energy before they get to the trellis that you've developed. Now, what we're using here is well, I live on a small farm, very small farm, but what we're using is old fence wire. I've had to take down some old fences and put up some new ones, and the old fence wire is perfect. I use two strands here, and this is a 25-foot row, and that makes it about 8 feet tall. And the beans, you see, they're prolific, and they keep wanting to be uh, grow even taller. It's easy for them to grow 8, 10 feet tall, but the problem is you can't reach them. Okay, so I keep them down to 7, 8 feet, and that way I can reach them. And about 3 times a week off this one row here, I get a nice basket full of green beans. To keep them producing and bearing all the way till the time the frost comes, you have to keep them picked. You have to keep them picked very well because they're prolific. They're busting out of the seams and they're trying to produce for you. And if you keep them picked, well, then they will produce for you. They'll keep producing. But if you miss a week picking them, they'll start the decline and not keep producing beans. One of the things about being a senior citizen, I have a lot of senior citizens, friends. In fact, I was a United Methodist minister for 26 years. I just retired a couple of weeks ago. And I've got lots of friends. And they're even better friends when they find out that you've got snap beans, green beans, tomatoes, bell peppers. They want to be your close friend. So that's a way to be popular in your neighborhood, is to have a nice garden. That's another benefit. Now I've got five kinds of beans I'm growing, trying to do an experiment. I'm so used to experimenting, and most of it's just for me. But I've got 5 kinds of beans here that I'm growing um, in these pole beans. Um, there is the Scarlet Runner. It's the one with all the red blossoms. Now, also, you can find similar beans called Painted Lady, and all of them are good. And these beans can be used in the landscape or in the garden. Then there comes the Kentucky Wonder, uh, and it's also, you might find it as the old homestead variety, or even they might be called a Texas variety. Okay. Now, the Kentucky Wonder pole bean is an excellent bean. It's been around since the 1800s. Now, the United States did a lot of research on pole beans and back in the 1800s, and this one came out. It was originally known as the Texas pole bean, but they changed the name for marketing purposes and changed it to Kentucky Wonder pole bean, and it just took off, and it's been around for 150 years, really producing. But now it will get, if you don't pick it and pick all these beans young, um, before they get strong and mature, uh, big, and the seeds start to swell in them, um, it'll start producing, and it will also become very fibrous and string, becomes a string bean instead of a snap bean, and that means that when you snap it, see, it snaps, it snaps completely clean, no strings, you know, and it's good. Mm, yeah, I really can't eat it and talk at the same time. In fact, I can't chew chewing gum and walk at the same time anymore. There was a time that I could, but that's not now. So here's a look at the Kentucky Wonder. The Kentucky Wonder, on the sunny side where it gets the direct sun, is beginning to burn some. These have been producing now for about 6 weeks. So it's not unusual for them to get into a little bit of a decline. So I'm going to hit them with some Miracle-Gro fertilizer, a good balanced blend of Miracle-Gro, and it'll bring them back. And they may not put out new leaves along the bottom of them, but they're going to put out new leaves across the top, and they'll get renewed vigor. The other one that I want to tell you about is one called Dade, D-A-D-E. Now, it can be confusing because there's a new bean that came out in Florida named Dade, and there's also this old-timey bean, and it's very good. It's kind of a broad bean. If you pick them young, they are delicious. In fact, there's not a better bean than the Kentucky Blue, the Kentucky Blue Lake, the Kentucky Wonder, and this Dade comes real close. So I've grown it just for my own care and my own information. Now, we have Kentucky Blue Lake over here, and it produces wonderful beans, and even this small are terrific and great to have. I have been getting some seeds from some of these beans, so I mean I've let some of these bean pods go on to maturity, and as they start to change colors and turn yellow, and first a pale green, then a yellow, and then they become seed pods once they dry out. And I'll save them for next year. The great thing about beans is that you can use them save them from year to year and grow them. Sorry, seed companies, I apologize to you, but you can. But now on their side, if you want disease-free and you want the best beans that have been germinated, tested, and by law they have to be tested every year to find out, to make sure that they still have the germination necessary to be sold, then buy them from a seed company. That is the best insurance that you can have. But if you live dangerously and you like to take a chance, the fact that I only have 4 fingers proves that I'll take a chance from time to time. It doesn't always work out the way it should, but I have a good time and I get to meet a lot of good people when I have an accident. But anyway, these are some of the beans I wanted you to see. Now this last one is called yard-long beans. It comes from Asia. And the beans are actually anywhere from 1.5 feet to 2 feet in length. As you can see here, I've grown these in a container. And they are extremely energetic beans. They've already reached over and grabbed my tomato plant that's also in a container. I test tomatoes and beans in containers when I find a brand new one that I want to see how it works before I put it in my garden. Now the next video coming up will be about containers, because I find those to be so important to a home gardener, to a small gardener, to someone that's living in a environment where you don't have any soil or any place to grow things, maybe an apartment or a condominium. If you have a deck, you can have a container. And I'm going to show you how to get a foolproof container that will really prosper for you. But anyway, try these beans. These yard-long beans, when they're young, can be snapped and cooked just like a green bean. They're really a pea, and they have a few more calories in them, but in this stage, they are comparable to beans. You can grow them to full maturity, shell them, and they look a little bit like black-eyed peas once they begin to dry, or purple hull peas. But anyway, to grow and to have great beans, just make sure they get enough water, enough fertilizer, and when you go to plant them at 1.5 inches deep. Make sure they have a trellis to grow on. If they don't have a trellis, they're just going to run rampant across the ground, and they're not going to be healthy beans. They're going to die real quick. You know, make a place, make sure that you have something for them to grow on. Like I said, I use this reclaimed fence wire, and it's got holes in it big enough, because it was farm wire, for me to reach my hand through and grab the beans from one side or the other side. We'll see you in church this Sunday. Stand up for those things that make America better, all right? Whatever it is you can add. Everybody's got something they can add to the United States. You know, and the fact that I'm a pastor, ex-pastor, and Christian, I'll see you in church this Sunday, or your synagogue, or your place of worship. God bless you. The old gardener, Jim Bennett, saying, have a good week.